I've scaled 2 UK tech firms to 30 million ARR in 5 years. Not by following what our competitors were doing, but by doing something disruptive and simple and executing it with consistency. Many founders that I speak with think that scaling means staying on top of all the detail, being responsible for the quality of the output. But frankly, I've scaled fastest when I've created a context, hired amazing people, told them what game we were playing, where the white lines were on the field, told them how to score is the secret to unlocking the success of the teams that we built that took Rackspace and then Peer 1 to 30 million ARR in 5 years. Look, I understand where this comes from, because if you're the founder, you're head and shoulders above everybody else. And so everybody looks to you for the answer. You build that culture of the business where no decision got made without reference to the founder. That behavior gets ingrained in the company. And even when you hire new people into the business, that's how the business behaves. In this video, I want to walk you through some of the principles and some of the key points that are the system that I used at Rackspace and then at Peer 1 to scale these businesses. The first one of these is customer obsession. In neither case would growth to 30 million ARR have happened without word of mouth referral being a significant part of our customer acquisition and growth. And I don't think that happens unless you have the second one in place, which is talent obsession. You cannot do great work with customers unless you can share that customer obsession. And so you have to be really vigilant and deliberate about talent acquisition. And then culture. So if we want to be customer obsessed and now we've hired the people that we want, how do they behave? And for me, culture is what do people do when nobody's looking? And then the last one is building systems, because as you scale, you can't build a business on heroic endeavors. It might be the stuff of myth and legend, but if you have to have somebody throwing themselves on unexploded ordnance to have a customer outcome, then it just doesn't scale. So if you're a founder and you've hit the plateau, top of the S-curve, 70, 80 employees, maybe you've done an acquisition and you're the other side of 100, but you've got a lot of legacy, you've got some debt you need to sort out, give me a call. Love to see if I can help. If you're just looking for more inspiration at this point, description down below is a link to get a copy of the book, Fuck Plan B, which I wrote to capture these principles and 10-point plan, everything I learned at scaling Rackspace, so that you can take this and steal from it and relieve some pressure and pain and keep going. Look, my first principle here is customer obsession. At Rackspace, we obviously ended up being world famous for our Fanatical support. We were operating in the world of IT services where most of our competitors would put you into a call handling system and you'd talk to level 1 and level 2 and level 3. You'd be triaged. You'd be in a ticketing system. And we decided we were going to do something differently. When we hired people, we had to untrain them. So I remember hiring some tech support guys from Veritas. And at Veritas, if you used up enough support time so that you as a customer were no longer profitable, they stopped supporting you. Whereas at Rackspace, you might be one of our smallest customers and we might put 2 or 3 days effort into you because, I don't know, your website had been hacked and you didn't have the technical capability to recover yourself. So we would get in and we'd pull out the data from your backup and we'd go back and we'd rebuild the whole thing for you. And that was much more enjoyable for the employees. In most of the industry, what you have is you have a service level agreement. You know, if we said to somebody, we're going to build you a server in 4 days because that's our SLA, at Rackspace, we would just build the server. Customers would ring us up and go, I can't believe you did that so quickly. I only signed the order an hour ago and my server is already built and online. The other thing that we would do is we would pick the phone up in 3 rings so that you get somebody straight on the phone that can solve your problem, as opposed to somebody who wants to take your details and then see if they can fix it and then pass you on to somebody else. You don't ring support for fun. You ring us at 3 o'clock in the morning when this shit's broken. And so that customer obsession led to trust. Even if we didn't sell another customer at Rackspace, we were growing 1% every month for the time I was there. Next up is, look, I'm just going to pull these two together because they fit nicely together. One is talent and the other is small teams. Let me start with talent. I realized early on that we couldn't hire people from our competitors because they didn't have any service DNA. They had been taught to behave as if customers were always wrong, and they'd worked in businesses where customer support was cut off if customers might be becoming unprofitable. I had 2 streams of talent. You go fishing in a pool where nobody else is fishing. One was South Africans. I early on hired a couple of guys who had amazing tech skills, but couldn't get a tech job. And so were working, doing security on bars and restaurants. So I hired them, put them to work. They were fantastic. We ended up getting to the point where we were hiring South Africans, and we created this sort of community that drove referrals within that community. People would know each other. By the time I left, we had about 150 employees there with the 30 million ARR. They were 2/3 of the organization. The other third was referrals. Those teams knew other people, customers knew other people. So we ended up very quickly having our own in-house talent acquisition team, and we were attracting amazingly talented people. Let me talk about the small teams. And so as you scale, one of the things that gets difficult is that the organization starts to split into silos. So when you're a small team, 6, 12 people, everybody knows what's going on. Now, when you get to 30 people, you've got a sales team, and you've got an operations team, and you've got a finance team, and you've got a marketing team. And the marketing team and the sales team are bitching about, is this a lead? Is this SQL or an MQL? And who's responsible? And the tech support guys are complaining because the pre-sales haven't been done properly. So when this got handed over and we tried to deliver it, there was a mismatch of expectations. And the customers start to feel that pain. Every time a customer moves between a silo in your organization is an opportunity to destroy customer satisfaction. It's like, okay, there must be a different way to do this. And so we said, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to run this as small teams. We're going to call these pods. We are going to put a number of technical people, some customer success people, account managers, and a finance person. And that's going to be a team. And they're going to look after an amount of revenue. And so as you then tier the organization, at the top, you've got that team looking after a small number of customers, but a lot of revenue. And the next one, more customers, but the same revenue. You've got a team at the bottom doing the massive long tail. And so your junior people get to work with the customers that are less important to you. And your more senior people get to build really strong, lasting relationships with your most important customers. Those teams would also be measured on the net promoter score of their bit of the customer. We're going to give some white lines. So we're going to say, this is what your boundaries are. We're going to say, here's the score. You've got your annual recurring revenue as you roll in at the beginning of the quarter, and we want you to grow it by the end of the quarter. So that team is responsible for revenue growth and customer engagement. Culture might sound a bit woo-woo, but I think it's the glue that binds organizations together. There's some great research about social loafing. When you add a seventh person to people pulling a rope, everybody pulls a bit less. But that research was done when the teams didn't know each other, the individuals didn't know each other. When it was repeated and you had teams that had come together with a common purpose, the additional people added more pull. And so by creating small teams, we created a perfect environment for people to do their best work. I fervently believe nobody comes to work to do a shit day's work. They come to work because they want to do meaningful work with people that they like. And at Rackspace, as we were scaling, our values sort of emerged, if you like. What happened is one of our account managers, Anne, came to me and said that one of our sales guys, who I won't name, he's lazy. You need to fire him. And I said, well, I can't fire him because you think he's lazy, but why don't we do this? Why don't you write down 15 things that you think are the behaviors that would make a great employee in this business? She went away, she talked to everybody else, and she came back, and it was, don't be late, don't do this, don't do this. But that's very negative. Let's flip it on its head and make it all positive. So we ended up with 15 behavioral statements that were all positive. Then what we did is we said, right, we're going to measure everybody in the whole company. Everybody's going to score everybody else out of 5 on each of these 15 things. And at the end of the quarter, the person with the highest score gets to go away with their other half in a hotel for the weekend. That quarter, Dave, who was on support, was bottom of the list. I'm able to give him some feedback because there's opportunity for free text. And it was that Dave seemed to be busy when the phone rang. So I gave him that feedback. And the next quarter, with that specific feedback, the complaint was that Dave was amazing. He was employee of the quarter. And people said they never got to answer the phone because Dave was so on it. They never got a chance to speak to customers. If you let people pick their own goals, they will work harder to achieve them. If you try to install your goals on people, they will almost always be defensive and tell you why they can't be met. The last thing I want to just touch on is communication. That's one of the systems that you really need to be very deliberate about as you scale. I've got a standard way in which I run all hands meetings. I would turn up and give the finance update, and then each of the departmental heads would turn up and they had to say 3 positive things, what's happened in their area, and then a bottle of champagne to somebody who didn't work for them to make sure that we're calling out cross-departmental boundaries and celebrating success. I talked a little bit about onboarding, and that's a system you need to scale. So just stole this from somebody else. As we were doing the Management Today Service Excellence Awards, the real value for us wasn't winning the award. It was meeting other amazing service companies and stealing things from them. And one of the things that I stole was to give every new starter a little black book. New starters have a superpower inside your business. They see it for the first time. So the things that you do that are strange or odd, you've forgotten. I remember as a student in Newcastle renting a student apartment or flat, and it had an orange plastic sofa, it had a purple plastic carpet, and it had some terrible brown plastic curtains. And so I remember moving in thinking, God, this is absolutely disgusting. And within weeks, I'd stopped noticing. And so give those employees a new black book and ask them to write down what's strange, what's odd, what they need to have explained. And then what I would do is I'd have lunch with anybody who'd been there for less than 6 months, once a month. And I'd say, tell me what you've observed, tell me what you've seen, tell me what doesn't make sense. And also bring something which you think needs changing in the organization that you will not personally benefit from. And so I just want to early on build that culture of curiosity and a desire for everyone to fix it. I've been in too many places where people are expecting the light fairy to come and fix the lights, or the door fairy to come and fix the door locks, or the plant fairy to come and throw the dead plant away. And it's like, nobody's coming to save you. You need to own this shit yourself. And this stuff requires no talent. Let me give you a quick recap of what we've covered today. I've talked about customer obsession. I don't believe there is a cheaper way to scale your business than through word of mouth growth. It is just phenomenal. If you can get customers to refer you to the next customer, that costs you nothing. That's impossible unless you have employees who love delivering great service and who get a kick out of helping customers and delivering great products and services. And your culture then is important, because once you get past the point where everybody's in a room and you can see what's going on, you need people on the team to behave the way you'd want them to behave when you're not there. And you only get that if you've hired great people, and then you've created this cultural framework so that they're not left wondering what the right behavior is. And you've created a vocabulary so that people can talk about what great is. You can't beat your children and your animals into great behaviors, and you can't do that with employees either. You have to create a framework where they know and are rewarded for the right behaviors. Notice I haven't talked at all about go-to-market, about proposition development, about selling. I haven't talked about any of that. All of that has to be good enough, but some of these other things which are different to your competitors give you the opportunity to be unique and different and attract talented people, deliver great service, grow your business, and make it fun, and you don't burn out and lose the will to live when you get close to 100 employees. If I can help in any way, let me know. Description down below. Get a copy of Fuck Plan B and scale.